All right, everybody. October 11th, 2025, ceasefire number three.
Number
It's the third
three,
ceasefire. Ceasefire number three, day two, day one, day two.
day two.
Yeah, day two.
Yesterday at noon local.
Yesterday at noon local. Yeah, so day one and a half. And the ceasefire applies only to the Gaza, because the West Bank, Jenin is still under siege. All those towns are still under siege. They're still raiding, attacking,
Yep.
kidnapping people. And it's interesting because the West Bank and Gaza are connected in many ways. And one way they're connected especially is through the prisoners. Because a lot of the prisoners that Hamas is seeking these prisoner exchange for are from the West Bank. And in the previous prisoner exchanges, a lot of them were returned to the West Bank, some to Gaza.
Yeah. A hundred of the 250 are going to be released to the West Bank. 135 to Gaza and elsewhere, it said, but I think these details are still being worked out. Although
Right
it
now.
does seem like the resistance has the
Got
major concession is that the senior leadership appears to not be on the release list. Marwan Barghouti,
meaning
Ahmed
those three.
Sadat. I
I
mean,
see.
they always wanted Abdullah Barghouti, who was like Qassam's bomb maker, but I think he was always really an unlikely one. The Israelis, yeah,
They'd have to get Netanyahu himself to exchange for.
yeah, but yeah, senior leadership. I mean, Israel wants to deny a victory scene. Um,
Israel wants to deny a victory scene. They also are denying t- all 28 of the medical personnel they
all the medical
kidnapped.
personnel are,
Every
yeah,
single one,
yeah,
including Khalid Abu Safiya and
yeah,
Al Hams. What's his full name?
yeah,
That's gruesome.
yeah. I mean, I think that's gonna like Israel's going to be trying to make its defense for its war crimes to make show trials out of the doctors to say that the hospitals were part of.
This is
Uh,
a very strange plan. It's a plan to try to exonerate themselves by doing things that are even more monstrous than.
yeah, that underscore the genocide. In their mind, they believe it exonerates them
Yeah, it's
because they're so
completely.
disconnected
That's it.
from.
That's the word I was going to use. Yeah, just a total disconnect from humanity, from anything any normal person would conceive of. So, Lebanon, moving on to Lebanon, I saw a note that the Israelis destroyed 300 pieces of heavy equipment in one night, like
Yeah,
overnight.
so they've been doing that.
Bulldozers.
They've been doing that basically on a near daily basis, destroying any kind of heavy equipment, excavators, bulldozers. Um, yeah,
That is so mind blowing. It's hard for me to be surprised. This is just so, the fact that they're allowed to do this by the Lebanese government, by anyone who guaranteed any of these mediators, France, America are supposed to be mediators. I believe the American mediator said, we're not mediating anything. We're not guaranteeing anything.
yeah.
So,
I haven't seen a single story, and I confess that I am still a Western media consumer. And yeah, it's just it's over for them. It's not a story, despite the fact that I think I sent you the numbers, but like Israel brags about 1,000 cross-border raids since the ceasefire, which is just like the most Israeli ceasefire imaginable. But yeah,
that's,
destroying heavy equipment so that people can't rebuild, so that people can't move back to their villages, so that
and they're claiming that they killed 300 Hezbollah people since, that's the Israeli claim,
That's the
since
Israeli number, at least.
the ceasefire.
Yeah. It's virtually it's a daily attack. They attack daily.
Yeah, I guess
I mean,
if they're counting 300, it's been about that many days since the ceasefire. I would think ceasefire in Lebanon was in October, September.
October, I think
Yeah,
October.
October 2024. We're in October 2025. So yeah, it's hard to stay straight. I was thinking of trying to just write a chronology out for my own mind to keep things straight in terms
Like a
of
timeline.
yeah, just like when things happened, when they
Yeah.
bombed the first hospital, when they raided when they raided Al Shifa, when they attacked Rafah, when they had the first ceasefire, November 2023, when they had the second ceasefire, January 2025, when Biden announced a ceasefire and absolutely nothing happened. Was that July? Anyway, yeah, the war with Hezbollah, the different Iranian wars. It's just so many events. Like, yeah, that's assuming that this is actually stops for a while, which I have no idea whether it will or not. We'll kind of get into that at the end, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the number of hours that we've done ceasefire shows,
Yeah.
I feel like
Have you counted that? Did you have that in your notes anywhere?
I mean, this time I felt the same way. Like I wasn't gonna let myself get,
Yeah.
caught up in this. And then next thing you know, it was quite a surprise, I think. I
Yeah.
guess
I
this is
mean,
the
I
first time.
literally, my last sit rep by myself without Tarek here, I said, this is going nowhere. I said it with great confidence. Everything I've ever predicted has been wrong.
Yeah. So,
But
well,
yeah.
I mean, predicting this war, like I think if you had predicted this war, you'd have been committed. You like
Yeah. Especially
you'd have
their
been
behavior.
removed from society
The
for
things
your
that they did. Imagine like siege breakers. I said this on EI that the time I was on EI. I was like, if I had written this fictional speculation with a fraction of Israeli depravity, I would have been in jail. They would have.
yeah, you would have been fired on the spot. Like
They were like, what kind of sick mind would
and
conceive?
that's only for a fraction of it because there's this entire, iceberg below the water kind of analogy of just how far they took it. And the footage now, I mean, as soon as like the Israelis pulled back, they were even pulled back before the noon deadline. And it seems like they have pulled back further than they were intended to. The Israeli military got its opportunity to pull out
Get out of
and
danger.
they took that. They didn't want to fight at all. I mean, they're obviously, they still burned all the houses as they were
Sure.
leaving. And then the Israeli military took photographs of that as part of their military media of the houses burning as the units were withdrawing. But yeah, I mean, even just the scale, the different stages of the genocide, that like at the beginning in the first invasion of Gaza City, they were burning everything down. Remember, they were
Hmm.
burning so that
Hmm.
people couldn't, they would burn everything in a house so that there was no belongings left.
Yeah.
But then by, the genocide 3 and 4.0, now there's just nothing. And people don't know how to find their houses because
Yeah.
there's no landmarks.
You need a GPS to find
It,
your house.
it's just incredible. There's nothing that resembles what it used to look like. So people walk back and they did it again though. They walked back across the Nitzarim corridor.
Yeah.
That that the
Long
march of
march.
return basically. That's just such a, a significant moment, and something that Hamas said had to be part of any ceasefire deal, that people could immediately return to their homes without any restrictions.
Izzat al-Rishq from Hamas, I guess yesterday or the day before, was talking about this march home. He said the people of Gaza chose to return immediately and without delay. This collective behavior is itself an act of resistance whose meaning is clear as the sun. No Nakba after the Nakba of 1948. As Palestinians, we have a path and a future in one direction: return. Today, back to our cities from which the Zionist extermination army displaced us in the Gaza Strip, and tomorrow, back to our cities and villages from which the Zionist gangs displaced us the first time. This is the path. So
pretty important.
that's their that's what this march back north means to them. And it also means an Israeli announcement of, with great confidence, that they were going to vaporize the north. The Israeli prime minister, whatever that guy's name is, Israel. His name is Israel, actually.
The president,
Israel's
yeah.
prime minister, Israel. He said he was tweeting about the destruction of these buildings, and they were talking about how they were going to destroy everything. And now the people are marching back again.
Yeah, like before that, there was the general's plan. Yeah,
And
they just made it up as they went along. I think that's.
And they were trying to breathe it into existence, right? They were trying to just say it and then make it happen. And I think that's how they think the world works. And I think they on their side have been really disappointed that they can't just say things and have them automatically happen.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Naeem Qassem. I did mention this speech, I think, when Tarek and I were on doing our live. But Naeem Qassem had, before Hamas signed back, he said, if the administration's in the hands of an international party and the responsibility for managing their affairs is stripped from the people of the land, and when the prisoners are returned in the first days, what will we have achieved after all these battles? And so he was very worried, it seems to me.
I think that was that at that time, I think when we hadn't seen any of the details, and then especially because the people who were driving the information were, were Trump and his people.
Exactly.
I think it was worrisome. But with each passing hour, as we get more and more details about it, I mean, it's still a gamble, but a lot of the gamble seems to make a lot more sense once we see what the technical details are, which we might as well go over. But, the end of the aggression was something that Hamas had was obviously the number one thing that had to happen. Yeah. And when this plan was being sold, it wasn't being sold as an end of the aggression. And Netanyahu's first statements last weekend were not that the aggression was over.
That's right.
And it wasn't clear what the mechanisms were. But now that we see, the end of the aggression is the thing that they're going to make Trump, and he has already said it. Yeah. But that's the thing they're going to make Trump say in Cairo in the next day or two, whenever he gets there.
Is it Cairo or is it Sharm el Sheikh?
I think it's in Cairo.
Okay.
The talks were in Sharm el Sheikh, but I think the last I heard Trump say the plan was in Cairo. But people are returning. The Israeli military withdrew from population centers, which was always, the full withdrawal from the Gaza Strip was never in any of the ceasefire agreements. There was always some kind of a phased withdrawal. And that's what, at this point, I think the Israeli military in the buffer zone is going to be something that, I think that is something that
they're going to definitely try to stay. So they're going to try to stay, and it's, from a military perspective, they're trying to stay in areas that are pretty safe from Hamas, and they're trying to stay in a way where they don't antagonize Hamas and force them into fighting them, and in such a way that Hamas also won't want to go to them across the big.
Yeah. Well, they also want the high ground. That, they basically want to put Israeli troops in front of the settlements. So they want to
Oh, I
The
see.
settlements are supposed to be the human shields, but this new Israeli military plan is, instead of having the kibbutz be the human shields for the military, that the military will stand in front of.
Right.
So, to finish the other things is that the the aid component was released. We saw the language of the aid component, and it's significant. The GHF is dead.
Already, they're gone.
They're gone. They
Yeah.
disappeared in the night on overnight Thursday night.
Yeah.
So aid sovereignty returns to the Palestinians,
And the
to the
trucks are
United Nations,
already coming, right? They're
and the
already.
trucks
Yeah.
are to be within a week to be up full time without restrictions on, they played so many games last time about how many
Yeah.
fuel trucks, and they didn't give enough fuel trucks. And here, this is the clause, the full clause on the humanitarian annex in the agreement. Number one, 600 aid trucks were entered daily by the UN and approved international organizations and the private sector. So that's pure Palestinian aid sovereignty, which is a huge, that's a significant.
Yeah.
I mean, the GHF was a dystopian hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the number two is the movement of trucks will be free from the south. So internal to Gaza, all the trucks can move. There's no garbage like last time about trucks going to the north, trucks going to the
Checkpoints.
south, checkpoints. All that stuff is not in this agreement. And this is the actual wording. And this is the key one. Exit of Gazan residents from Gaza to Egypt will be allowed through the Rafah crossing. And for the first time since October 7th, the return of Gazan residents who left the Strip from Egypt to the Gaza Strip will be allowed to return. The return of Gazans will begin only after a mechanism is formulated with the Egyptians. So that's the bilateral thing that the Egyptians said that they were going to establish with the Israelis. So we'll see about that. But the idea was also backed by Trump when he publicly said people will be allowed to come and go, which is just a really far distance from his Riviera where he was going to drive everybody into Jordan. And yeah, which I just, the technical, yeah, and the crossing. So the crossings are open. People can return to their homes. The aid infusion is happening. Like, these are all the language from the original ceasefire documents. So that Hamas believes that this is, I believe that this is a pretty significant achievement in terms of the language of the deal, which is makes sense since the biggest gamble of this whole thing is that Hamas has agreed, Qassam has agreed, and Saraya al-Quds has agreed to hand over the captives, which
But
gives
yeah,
them
it
no
wasn't.
mechanism.
It's not like Eden Alexander 2.0. They're not just handing them over in good faith. They are doing it as an exchange, which is what they always wanted. And the only negotiation was always going to be over what they get back for these captives. How many prisoners they get
Yep.
back.
So that language, I mean, that language, and then so the way that the Palestinians see it is that that's the thing they've agreed to. Phase one has been
Yeah.
agreed to. That's the thing they answered to. And all of the stuff we heard in the media about the disarming and the peace board and Tony Blair and all this, not only do Palestinians not think that that is going to happen, but the negotiations for it, they have put those
When?
it has to be a Palestinian day after.
Yes, they've said that many times.
So every story that we hear in the media says, it all talks about these clauses within the 20-point plan that make it seem like a huge win for Israel that aren't, they're not
Yeah.
real, because
Yeah. Well,
Palestinians are not going to negotiate over whether Tony Blair becomes their governor
that's
or
right.
not.
Well, yeah. I mean, he can presumably he can stand for election if he wants.
Yeah, was it Musa Abu Marzouk that said that? He's coming in as a Palestinian? Is he?
He'll take Palestinian citizenship and then he'll run for election. Why not?
Yeah. And so Hamas said they're willing to do the technical committee. That's the technocrats, the community
Yes.
support, what was it called? Community Support Council, I think it was called.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a
Pending
lot of
elections.
people in the
Pending an
Qassam.
election. Yeah.
There's a lot
So
of people in the Qassam brigades, I think, that would be perfectly happy for Hamas to not be the government.
yeah.
The reason that Hamas became the government was because of the failure and corruption of the Palestinian Authority and Fatah. They ran,
Well, the reason that they became the government is because they were elected. And,
yeah, well, that's why they
and
ran. Yeah.
yeah, that's why they became the government. Now, there hasn't been an election and their mandate has expired, but so has the other guys. So if they're going to have an election, they're going to have an election.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
unless Marwan
always,
Barghouthi's running for
yeah,
Fatah, Fatah's not going to win an election.
no.
I think
Even
that's fair to
though
say.
Mahmoud Abbas has already picked the new guy, apparently, that they want to have. So, I wanted to, yeah, so there was a joint statement from Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. And they talked about the prisoner issue with I think a bit of disappointment, justifiable disappointment. They said, "We've made great and strenuous efforts to release all female and male prisoners and the leaders of the National Prisoners Movement. However, the occupation, as is its habit, thwarted the release of a significant number of them. Despite this, we chose to proceed with implementing the agreement to ensure the halt of the war of genocide against our people and to prevent the enemy from continuing its collective extermination. We pledge to our people and the families of the prisoners that the issue of freeing all of them will remain at the top of our national priorities and we will never abandon them. We also congratulate our people on the freedom of this blessed group of our prisoners and heroes." So it's basically like they're just saying like we can't have that be a deal breaker and allow the genocide to continue.
Yeah, when the consequence is genocide and erasure.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. I mean, I do think that stopping the war and being aware of every hour that it continued,
Yeah.
that's I think that's a principled resistance movement that makes that decision that it's not about, ultimately it's not about them, it's about the Palestinian people. They are operating for their people. And so if they're standing against what could stop this, which is what the Trump, I think it's sort of the curveball of the Trump personal plan, is that I think that the speed with which it was proposed and the possibility to end the genocide quickly, I think that makes certain concessions make a lot of sense. I mean, even though it's like you've written about that it's that we're in an era where you can negotiate the end of a genocide, or posit it as if it's some kind of a legitimate military campaign that I think is a dark moment for humanity.
Yeah, and I want to talk about why this happened, why we think this ceasefire even happened, when it happened, and whether. And I think the better we understand why it happened, why Israel agreed to it, the more we'll understand whether it will hold. But there's a couple of things I want to just talk about in terms of the details of what's happened on the ground since the ceasefire was announced. We mentioned the people marching north. I just read a report from the government media office in Gaza reporting that government teams completed over 5,000 field service and humanitarian missions across Gaza governance in the past 24 hours. 1,200 medical tasks, 850 rescue and debris removal operations, and 900 municipal tasks to restore essential services. The statement affirmed these efforts continue despite the occupation destroying 90 percent of civilian infrastructure and the martyrdom of over 8,000 government staff. So, I mean, the simultaneously coming to grips with the scale of the destruction and with a remarkable speed restoring the basis of human life and social life in Gaza as soon as there's a reprieve. So when you think
within
of
minutes.
what people can do if they just have a reprieve. And again, you see why that, like, why Hamas would go for a deal like this is crystal clear. So the mystery is more why Israel agreed to it the way they did. But the other,
Yeah, I mean,
one
it's
last
remarkable
thing-
because that's the government. What you described is the government. The government is immediately within, minutes stood up and acting in its full capacity. The resistance is in the same situation. They fought right until the last minute. They never seemed to show any shortage of weaponry, preparation.
yeah, training,
Yeah,
skill.
we never sort of saw this, rough recruits who, we were told were not the capable military force that that Qassam once was. It's just all of it's not true. And the day after
Yeah,
is going to be Palestinian.
field reports still coming in. So like October 9th, there are some fighters who returned to their base and they had a field report on hitting a Merkava tank with a Yasin 105 and hitting another Merkava tank with a ground charge in a different part of Gaza City. One was in El Zaytun neighborhood and the other was in Yarmouk. And there's also arrests of these aid looters, 17 arrests, including a deputy gang leader. Meanwhile, members of this Abu Shabab gang are detaining medical staff in one of the hospitals, Al Auda Hospital, and clashing with security forces. So this particular story of the aid looting Israel supported militia, I think, is going to be coming to a rather ignominious and rapid end.
Yeah, I mean, they're taking shelter in a hospital. Like, what could be more Israeli? And you see that as soon as it's Yasser Abu Shabab, there you see that them doing things that you never saw Qassam do. They never went to a hospital for cover.
And you know what it looks like because you didn't ever see what it really looked like until now. The other thing is, I heard, did you see this? That apparently the Iranian prime minister or president is going to come to Egypt for this conference.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
I don't know if that's for sure, but I did see a report that 20 different countries are coming. Israel's not going, I don't think. I don't know. I maybe I saw something that was AI generated, but I did. Yeah, I'm worried. It was all so strange, but I don't know if anything is too strange to occur.
Well, I think Trump. The idea was that Trump was going to speak in the Knesset.
Okay.
I don't know if that has anything to do with the Israelis being in.
Egypt.
I mean, I have to imagine the Israelis are going to be in Egypt.
But there's not going to be a photo op where Khalil al-Hayya shakes hands with Netanyahu or whatever. That's not going to.
No,
That's not going to be a thing.
No, but I think that, I mean, judging from what Hamas had said, the idea was that they wanted Trump to stand there and tell the world honestly, speak the words into the camera, basically.
Yeah.
As a means of holding. I mean, that's the thing about this whole deal. The only mechanisms in this deal are
Trump's honor.
Trump's. Yeah. Well, he's immediately called in Central Command, 200 soldiers for logistics inside Israel, and they have already been deployed. They arrived yesterday.
I mean, these are interesting developments, right? I mean, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was really horrific. and it gave a feeling of Americans working on behalf of Israeli genociders.
I'll say.
But CENTCOM coming to let trucks through has almost the opposite feeling.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, now the adults are going to take over.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it fits with what Trump said about like we're going to feed those people, and those kind of statements
Yeah.
that he had been repeatedly saying. And yeah, I mean, he's obsessed with the captives more so than any Israeli
Yeah.
soldier or politician. I mean, maybe rank and file soldier, but no commanders
No.
cared about the captives. But I think that, yeah. And even Trump had his weird, obsession with the bodies, with
Yeah.
the dead bodies,
Yeah.
which
He
is,
made that in his short video statement. He made sure that he said that the
he said
parents
it a
want them.
number of times about the parents, right?
Yeah.
Because
The
like,
parents want them just as much as.
yeah. And I think that, yeah, I mean, you want to talk logistics, they're not going to find those bodies in the same way that no Palestinian family could find the families that are buried
Yeah.
in the and those, to tie it to those messages, Qassam is releasing those field reports because their fighters are fighting in territorial defense units
Yeah.
that are from day to day cut off
Yeah.
from reporting. So it shows you that they're not just running all around, because it's each unit
Yeah.
is then reporting back in the same way that the health ministry was able to immediately go around and do its government work. The resistance was able to
Right.
file its field reports. So it just shows that both, yeah, but they're undefeated. They're not defeated, and nobody in Israel believes that they are. There's nobody in the media, there's nobody in the military pretending that they're defeated. And even Netanyahu, because his first thing he said last Saturday was that Hamas will be disarmed and Gaza will be demilitarized either through Trump's proposal or through our military. And at this point right now, that's certainly unclear.
It's not going to happen. That is just not going to happen. Either one of those ways. There's Abdel Malik al-Houthi. I mean, it's interesting because the way Trump talked about the bodies. Abdel Malik Houthi, in his speech, he gave a number that he thinks that the Israelis took 2,000 Palestinian bodies from various cemeteries over the course of the 2 years. 40 cemeteries and stole 2,000 bodies, which is itself just really strange. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that ever. Not even in ancient times. I don't think the Americans stole Vietnamese bodies from cemeteries, did they?
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of that.
I mean, in our news media culture, spray painting on a gravestone is like one of the most hateful acts that our society purports to understand.
Yes.
So that Israel just goes around and digs up every single graveyard. I mean, it was interesting because the resistance also, Israel's not giving back Sinwar's body, the Sinwar brothers. And Qassam's response to that was that that's not that big a deal where they're buried. It's all in Palestine, and we're not going to get sentimental about which area of Palestine they're buried in, which is such a Trump card.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's beautiful that they said it's all Palestine anyway. And Abdel Malik Houthi concluded his speech basically saying, we're going to stay ready. So he said, we will remain in a state of full alertness and readiness with precise and careful monitoring regarding the implementation phase of the agreement. What we hope for is an end to the genocide against the Palestinian people and for the enemy to commit to a ceasefire. This was originally our objective in providing support. It must be understood that what occurred was a single round and that the enemies continue with their schemes, conspiracies, and ambitions, which follow multiple tracks. And then again, he says, regarding the agreement, if the result is achieved, then so much the better. That is what we hope for. Otherwise, we will continue our path of support and backing. So their fingers are still on the trigger.
And they had a number of successful penetrations with drones inside Israel within the last 10 days of the war as well.
Yeah. They sure did. And I mean, I think we can now talk about what led up to this agreement. And I do think that there was a lot of unfounded confidence by the Israelis about how the Battle of Gaza City was going to go. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they would have thought it was going to go any differently than their various neighborhood battles. They just thought they could scale it up 2 years later.
I mean, it depends who they is. Like the military, they didn't. I mean, they internally, they were talking about that it would take many months just to get situated inside Gaza City, and then many, many more months. They had a time frame that essentially stretched upwards of a year.
Yeah.
And they said that they were going to go super slowly, and that their protection of their soldiers was the number one. They basically aren't fighting. They're just genociding, destroying, and getting raided inside their base. Like Qassam was attacking them inside their defensive positions.
Well, this is the thing about military doctrine or military practice, which is the reason that you see counterinsurgents doing these raids and these patrols all the time is precisely because if you just sit there, you are what is colloquially known as a sitting duck. If the guerrillas know where you're going to be, if they know where your base is, and they know you're not going to leave, sooner or later they're going to figure out a way to attack the base. And that's why aggression in counterinsurgency, they always talk about aggression. They always talk about taking the fight to the enemy. And Israel doesn't. They take the fight to the enemy because the enemy is the children.
Yeah,
and the enemy
children
is the patients, hospital patients, and school children. And Israel is more than willing to take the fight to that enemy. But, as far as going into Gaza City, when did they go? Again, how long had the battle been going on when the ceasefire happened? Not long.
3 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, about 3 weeks. So they said, we're going to do this for a year. We're going to blow up every building. We're going to destroy every building. You see these towers coming down. Netanyahu was like, this is great. We're going to bring down all these towers. Yeah. And 3 weeks later, there's pictures of people inside the Israeli tanks, and like Palestinians are taking photos with leftover hulks of disabled Israeli tanks, and the Israelis are blowing up their own fortifications in these corridors. And
okay, so why?
So obviously the first thing is the Battle of Gaza City.
Yeah,
did not go.
Was not going to go well.
Was not going to go well.
No, and there's no reason to believe that it would. The second battle of Khan Yunis, which is a much more spread out area, didn't go well. And basically every 4 days, a video dropped that was a devastating operation that Israelis saw and were like, how is this happening? How are these failures happening? So Gaza City is where the concentration of the most skilled fighters were, especially after Israel pushed the fighters off the boundary areas like Zaytun and Shujaiya and Daraj and Tufa. It makes sense that they would be concentrated in Gaza City and be able to defend that area. The tunnel system in Gaza City is
the densest.
super developed, yeah. And so it would not have been,
2 years of munitions to return to sender.
yeah, you'd have to presume. And the resistance strategy, of course, is not to meet the 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 rolling invasion. It's to wait until they stop, like you say, and hit them in their position. So I don't even we didn't even see the we didn't see the main thrust of the resistance because Israel never got to that stage.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. It was, yeah, they were setting themselves up for something like that, where they would be driven out of these positions in some way, the Tet offensive kind of repeat for the
Yeah, so the
for the
military clearly
2020s.
didn't want to fight. I mean, I've been reporting that for a
Yeah.
couple of months at least on my weekly show that uh, yeah, there's just all kinds of communications from inside
Yeah.
the Israeli military that was just clear that I mean they were fighting in public, Netanyahu and the chief of staff, because that nobody in the Israeli military wanted to fight anymore.
I think those you like you said those Yemeni successes, there were new things happening with the Yemeni missiles and
Yeah,
drones.
with the drones. Yeah.
There were a couple of new hits. There were a couple of new things
Yeah,
that
there was
must have been
a cluster
alarming.
munition warhead that we saw
Yeah.
just last week, I believe it was, within the last 10 days that we saw that the Israelis had to fire many interceptors at a single missile. And then the drones were getting through,
Yeah.
repeatedly getting through to Eilat over the last month and
Yeah.
hitting targets, hitting,
Casualties.
yeah,
Yeah.
hitting the airports, hitting key places. And the last few of them seemed like the drones were like coasting, that they were on their arrival,
Oh,
which made
loitering.
it, yeah, which made it harder for the Israelis to detect them.
And maritime Yemen, they were hitting ships. Yemen announced that the deal with the Americans was off. I don't think they did anything, but they said anybody in the Red Sea, any American in the Red Sea is up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean that part of it, cutting off the Red Sea, definitely worked. Um, the Mediterranean is where the Israelis got most of their resupplies, but I mean most of their resupplies came by air.
Cyprus, yeah, the air bridge, unaffected. We know it's not the air bridge. They didn't have trouble with the air bridge. They didn't have trouble with the American bombs. But Naeem Qasem in his speech, that same speech I was talking about earlier, he said the reasons behind the putting forth of Trump's plan to clear Israel before the global wave that condemned it, especially through the United Nations, and because of the escalating popular movement in American and European countries. So the plan came as a way to soften the image. So Naeem Qasem, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, viewed opposition in Europe and America as playing a role. And it's possible. I mean, the dock workers in Italy, I think, was a wake up call. That was one of the first meaningful consequences for any of the Western elites supporting Israel. And if that happens there, it can happen elsewhere.
I think the
So,
recognition stuff, I think, you could attribute that to pressure on the ground and it's
yeah,
obviously not the strongest way to interact with the conflict, but it was
yeah,
definitely something that they didn't have the courage to do for the 2 years previous.
yeah. Yeah, but like those strikes and I don't know, like we've never been rah flotilla. We're not anti flotilla or pro flotilla. But like it was disheartening kind of knowing how the story was going to end every time. But like 50 ships, it looked like Israel had some difficulty, and the sheer number of ships could overwhelm them at some future point. I mean, if there were
Yeah.
200 or 500 ships, there's no way the Israelis could stop them all. And then some of them get to Gaza, and then the siege is broken, at least symbolically. And that might have caught their attention. That might have been a worry.
Could be. But the Qatar strike, I think, is
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now we can talk about America, Israel. Because for more longer than since 2023, for maybe 10 or more years, I've believed that the idea that American and Israeli elites are in some kind of conflict with each other was just a theater for stupid people like us. Like, oh, when Obama, they used to say, oh, Obama hates Netanyahu, and then voted him $3.8 billion of
yeah.
weapons. And I was like, I wish somebody hated me. I wish somebody hated me that much to
Yeah, they
give me
whispered
3.8.
behind his back on hot mics while
Yeah.
giving them billions and
Yeah. But, but for all of that, it does seem like there may have been some overreach with bombing Qatar and maybe assassinating Charlie Kirk. I don't know. Some of these right wing figures that are close to the elite in America. Sorry for mixing up America and Israel there, everyone. Um, they're really upset, and
yeah.
some of them are kind of implying at least that Israel played a role in assassinating this sacred cow, right wing kind of sacred cow of theirs. A
Yeah, well, I
guy,
think I mean whether without going down that rabbit
yeah,
hole, I think that it's Max is reporting on the fact that
yeah,
this organization that Charlie Kirk
yeah,
ran was open to having the debate about
exactly.
Israel that has been
Not
basically
allowed.
illegal.
Yeah.
It as- yeah, on campuses
Hmm.
that after their annual meeting in whatever it was in July when Tucker Carlson spoke about Epstein
Yeah.
and they hosted a debate on Israel. It had the ability to spread to
Yeah.
all of their astroturfed
Yeah.
campus organizations that would just open the floodgates to this debate
Yeah.
about whether you can be America First fascists and also support the genocide.
Yeah.
I mean
Or
that
whether you had to choose between
yeah,
these
and I
two
mean you can see
wonderful.
that and tie it together with the sale of TikTok,
Yeah.
the sale of CBS, the potential sale of CNN, the fact that Netanyahu said that social media is a battlefield.
It's the eighth front of their 150 fronts of warfare.
But then the strike in Qatar is it's hitting Trump's families kind of like golden goose, right?
Yeah.
And in a way that in since this whole thing is just a cult of personality and personality driven, it does it Trump the 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 explanations on a military front about how it's possible for the US military to not know that that there was a ballistic missiles coming in
Yeah.
near
Yeah.
their position is
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing, but Trump seems to be he's selling it pretty hard that he had no idea. And then, he's made a big show of it did you see the photo of when Netanyahu's apologizing to the Qataris and Trump's holding the phone in his lap
Oh yeah.
and the receiver is in Netanyahu's hands and it's kind of like it just looks like the dad telling the kid to phone and apologize for the fight in the park or whatever. But he made a big show of that.
But they may need to apologize again. Did you see that just hours ago the Qatari delegation, three members of the Qatari peace delegation were killed in a mysterious car crash in Egypt?
in Egypt.
Uh-huh. Sharm el-Sheikh. Two are in intensive care, and three members of the delegation have died in a car accident.
Hmm.
It's suspicious, right? So I guess whatever is happening, whatever is playing out is not over. It has not played out. It continues to play out as we speak. But I do, like when Trump went on video and said, "I'd like to thank everyone who helped me put this together," etc. I thought, like, wow, he's gonna look really stupid if the Israelis blow this one up. And if he goes to Egypt tomorrow and he does this big fanfare and then the Israelis blow up his deal, he's gonna look really stupid. And I don't know, maybe having him stand there and have to look stupid and have to eat all this shit is part of the humiliation ritual, but I don't know. I mean, this doesn't look like it doesn't look orchestrated. When you see, like, when I saw the photos of Palestinians climbing on top of these dead Israeli tanks, I thought the Israelis, this is not what the Israelis wanted. This is not unfolding according to a brilliantly conceived Israeli plan. There's no way.
No.
Uh,
No,
so,
this appears to be imposed upon Netanyahu, who was
yeah,
already at odds with the military, and the
yeah,
military saw the opportunity to essentially
yeah.
jump
Maybe,
on, jump on the wave and make it too impossible. I mean, once they could return all the prisoners,
yeah.
I think, Netanyahu, it would be very difficult at that stage for Netanyahu to.
To fight a war now, to return to war and take casualties, possibly new captives, all in the name of disarming Hamas. That would be the plan. That would be
And
the
he
plan.
believes that getting everybody back, um, you know, will be enough to save his political career. Well,
Yeah, and I mean that also, I don't know how nobody understands how Israelis think anymore. But if Israelis argue that he did it through a deal that he could have had 2 years ago, when many more of them were alive, I wonder
I mean,
how
that's just,
compelling.
I mean, I felt so sick about just like that. Ultimately, it really did come down to one phone call from the president of the United States to end the
Yeah,
war,
it
and
always.
Trump's like, wanting the Nobel Peace Prize or whatever, but also overseeing and allowing this last stage of the genocide in such
Yeah.
a devastating way that he allowed Netanyahu to just carry out that destructive, Gideon's chariots operations
One and
by the
two.
Israelis were military failures, but they were destruction on a level that set Palestinians in Gaza back probably years.
Yeah.
And just,
Well, and they killed a generation of children. Like they,
yeah, and journalists, and yeah.
and everybody had to watch that. And like, yeah, so in terms of this, the world turning against them, it's kind of immeasurable, but it's also, I, you know, it's immeasurable in a bad and good way. Like it could really, like, it could really be quite unfixable for them. Like the price of, so they're trying to say to the Palestinians, don't resist, or this is what we will do. This is what we're capable of morally. This is what we're capable of physically. And by demonstrating that this is what they're capable of morally, and they have to do it in a really displayed way, they really have made themselves despicable to every normal human being on this planet. And it could be that's also a consideration for why
Well,
they
he
have to
was
stop.
losing. Netanyahu was losing the American.
Yeah.
And Trump was losing in some ways. The base was cracking
Yeah. Well,
under the
Ali,
Epstein.
Ali posted like a little clip of Candace Owens speaking. Uh, he was just like, "Why can't AOC or Bernie say something like this?" And it's true, right? Like the American left or American progressives have totally conceded any moral discussion of this. It's all just tactics and politics and what's possible and what's not, and what's going to build the widest coalition and whatnot on that side. But Candace was like, if you talk to someone who wants to go to an ethnically cleansed beach in Gaza and enjoy their time in the Gaza Riviera, you should look at them like they're the vermin of society. And she said that with like that kind of emotion that a human being is supposed to have, which is so rare to see. And yeah, they're cracking. Like they're cracking. This Candace Owens is like a friend of Charlie Kirk. She's like, she's got 5 million followers, all conservative.
Yeah, they have bigger followings than the major media does
Yeah,
at this point.
yeah, and
And
yeah, and
that's
it's
Netanyahu's whole line to Israelis is that no
mhm.
matter what is happening, no matter how
Yeah,
much Israel's a pariah state, his way of
he
staying in power is that he says he
controls
has
America.
he controls America, and
Yeah,
that was slipping. And
yeah,
I mean, the youth,
yeah,
the fact that they like a literal fascist takeover of TikTok, and then they install their
yeah.
own person to run TikTok.
And then they're taking over CBS, and every idea that Barry Weiss has for a show is immediately tanks. Her announcement, I don't know. I mean, I might eat these words. Maybe she'll become a ratings monster, and and
No, but
everybody
it's
will tune in.
that this is the world that we live in is some I know it's like but for real, just that this is the world we live in, that Barry Weiss is anything,
Yeah,
but that
yeah, and not in jail. Yeah,
to be taking over these, whatever. They call them institutions. Like the last time CBS was an institution in the United States,
it's been
like
a while.
you're talking at least a full generation, you know. I mean, even in the Iraq War, they were 60 Minutes has not been an adversarial news
Right,
show
right.
for at least our lifetime,
Yeah.
if it ever was. I don't. We're only
Um.
we're not
So
old enough.
I was thinking about like the time between Ceasefire 1 and Ceasefire 2. So between November 2023 and January 2025. And that I at that time I thought, well, this means the Israelis are exhausted militarily. And then whatever until March, it took them until March to get it together to go for it again. And they went for it again, and March to September is about 6 months. Yeah, October, whatever, 6.5 months. So I mean, suppose they give the Palestinians this reprieve, and then they decide to launch the war again in a month or two.
I mean, I don't. I think the concern isn't so much launching the war, is that they create a dynamic in Gaza of permanent capacity to strike, right? Where it's like they, sort of like the West Bank, um, where they can essentially police the territory,
Yeah, it's
assassinate people, carry out these kind of assassinations that would, you know, target the rebuilding of the institutions in Gaza.
well before I knew much about who Yahya Sinwar was in 2021. I knew that story. I saw that story that the leader of Hamas in Gaza said, I'm going home now and I'm gonna, you know where my home is and I'm walking. So if you're gonna do something, you go ahead and do it. And they didn't. And it was like the Israelis didn't want to go back to war. And
Yeah, it just feels like a totally different world.
yeah, exactly. It's not that, but it's all I don't I think going to achieving a West Bank type of situation is also not feasible. I think that's what they've been trying to do. And it's too hot. It's too hot for them in the populated areas. So maybe they can restore something like pre 2023. But if they tighten the siege too much, I imagine the Yemenis will come back into the game. You know, if they if they try to do, I mean, imagine like what they're doing in Jenin, right? Where they go in and try to grab people. I think they'll run into an ambush then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No question.
So
I mean, yeah, there's no question of the capacity of the resistance too. I mean, the problem is just when you have unlimited air
yeah, yeah.
airplanes
But
and
they had that
bombs.
all. They've never not had that.
Yeah, well, I think they used to have red lines. There used to be, they believed that there was red lines, and I think this is the first. In some ways, we're like today is the first day of the rest of. We'll see what happens with what Israel has destroyed. Yeah,
Humanity's shortened tenure on planet Earth.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know, because you're right. Like we've always had this analysis that the Israelis are as surprised as anybody about what they were able to get away with, and so if they now have this expanded idea of what they can get away with, yeah, I don't know
yeah.
what.
Well, I think they're going to test because for it to be the fact that it's not an institutional backing in any way for this agreement, that it's just literally Trump, like what the Democrats were doing, playing the long game of like blocking the 2,000-pound bombs and dragging their feet on the bulldozers. Like they had that kind of apparatus in play in the government. There's nothing like that in the Trump government.
Yeah, but that
So
didn't
so
amount to
Toronto
anything.
is going to learn, or yeah.
That didn't amount to anything. It didn't amount to anything. So at the end of the day, it was Biden's word, which was worth nothing, because Biden's mind was worth nothing.
Yeah.
So, and now it's Trump's word, which who knows, probably worth nothing too. But it's not just their word, right? It's what they can do, what they're willing to spend, what they're willing to give up. And yeah, I just don't know. So, but what all this started, this last part started is I imagine if they do go back to war, it'll probably be even shorter than 6 months, before the Israelis get exhausted, depending on how long of a reprieve they give themselves. And if they, I don't know, like if they just send the army home, how many of them are gonna go home and then just keep going,
Yeah,
fly
I mean,
back, right?
yeah.
Like, just,
I mean, they were
just
having that problem. The
yeah,
number of people that returned, people wanting to leave, the
yeah,
ultra orthodox recruitment. I mean,
yeah,
it's very difficult to say that Israel is in a stronger position
yeah.
today than they were before this war.
They're in a stronger position in the sense that they now know that no Arab state
Yeah.
and no Western state
Yeah.
is going to do anything.
Yeah.
And that is a huge step forward for them because they
Yeah.
didn't know that and now
They
they do.
didn't know that.
But the world is also changing, and the resistance also now knows that they know. And a lot of their surprises and tricks were one offs that can't be repeated. So we will still be here,
Yeah.
even
We're
though
not
we're
going
at a bit
anywhere.
of a loss for what to do with our lives. Yeah. So hang in there, everybody. Yeah, I'm not planning to take a hiatus anytime soon. So I'll be weekly. I'll still be here weekly at least.
People might need you to cover the Venezuela front.
Yeah. Yeah. The Venezuela front is another that I do see a shooting war on the Venezuela front in the near future. So
But yeah, we're not going anywhere. The Electronic Intifada live show isn't going anywhere. Resistance Report's not going anywhere. So
and yeah, I mean I think people have made
stick
this
with us.
point that like in terms of leverage, assuming if the Western and you know global anger at Israel was a factor in bringing the ceasefire about, well then that is one that is one variable that is absolutely under our control and also cannot be as easily crushed by the Israelis, through assassination and the other kinds of modalities they use. I mean, social media character assassination is,
Yeah, people can't stop. We can't
yeah,
stop like this is over.
yeah,
This is just one stage of this that's over.
yeah,
Even if the war does end, the quest for justice, and
yeah.
that that all requires us all to stay focused
Like
on
Abdul
this
Malik Al Houthi says, keep in the highest state of, what is it? The highest state
readiness,
of alertness. Yeah, we
alertness.
remain. So everybody, instead of saying hang in there, I'll say remain in a state of full alertness and readiness with precise and careful monitoring. Okay, that's what we need from you all.
Appropriate.
Okay, see you guys in the next one.